Okay, so I think we'll get started. There should be a few more people joining as we go. As I just mentioned, my name is Jenny Schultz, and I'll be showing you today how to use Citavi Web. And we'll also talk about a few other changes that have happened recently, because all of that is kind of connected with trying out Citavi Web and using attachments and things like that. You can see that it's just a little bit less information up here in the toolbars, a little less text, and also then in this bottom bar here. And everything scales up and down nicely. So it should be a good experience, and we hope that you will like it as well. And one thing to just reiterate is that we do have all of the features that you already would know and like from Citavi 6 for Windows. So you can still do all of the steps of the research process in Citavi Web. You can search for sources, add them into your project. You can analyze texts and exert quotations and save your own comments. You can bring all of that into an outline. And then when you go to write, you have all of your notes and your sources at hand. So it's easy to write, and you're less likely to suffer from writer's block or not knowing where to start. These are a lot of projects that I created already in Citavi 6 for Windows. So if you created cloud projects before, then you can open them in Citavi Web. But I'm going to just name this demo. I can change the color if I want, can give it a description. And if I were importing from another reference management program, I could click this link and import that information. So if you're switching from EndNote or Mendeley, this is where you would do that. All right, so when you open your new project, you can import references right away. This is a bit of a difference to Citavi 6 for Windows that you have when you start an empty project. You have this window pop up, so you know right away where you need to go to import things. And so we're going to do that. We're going to import a PDF file, actually a few PDF files. So to add that, you just go to this add-ins and settings area, and then RSS feeds, and then you can enter that feed URL there. Also on this add-ins and settings tab, you have the information about the Word Assistant and the Citavi Picker. And there are some citation options as well. Citation keys are used for citation styles, especially footnote styles, where you might need to have a shortened form of the citation when you cite a source more than once. So if you're working with one of those more complex styles, Chicago style is an example, then you can activate that and use that. And then we also have LaTeX support if you're working with a LaTeX editor. Okay, and just want to point out as well that we still have all the language options we had in Citavi 6 for Windows, and you have a few different options under this options link as well. So you can, for example, check how much storage space you have here. If you purchase additional Citavi space, that'll show up in this area here. And so, for example, I see I have quite a bit of space, so I can add lots of attachments yet. And you have this question area here. This just has some information for common support questions. So things like licensing questions. And you have, very importantly, the link to ask our support team a question. So that's the basics of this main screen here. And one last thing that I almost forgot, you can also add team members to a project here in this project list. So if I wanted to add a colleague to this project, I can do so. And one thing that's great about Citavi Web is now that if you're working on a project with Mac users and Linux users, in addition to Windows users, everyone can use Citavi Web for the project. So you don't have that barrier anymore of the operating system being an issue. So let's say that I want to give my colleague Jana the reader role, and that would just mean that she can't make any changes to the project. She can only view the information I have in there. And if I made her an author, she could make changes, add references, and do all the things I can do. And as the project leader, I'm the only one who can delete the project or add team members. So I'm just going to invite her. In addition to PDFs, you can import from a database. So there you would use a text file, for example. Or if you forgot to import when setting up your project, you also have the option here to import from another reference management program. So now everything that you have information entered for is shown, and then the empty fields are not. And to show those empty fields, you just go down here to these two arrows and click that option. And then you can enter anything else that you might need. For example, if you're using the custom fields, then you could fill that out. So this is something that's also good, I think, to show new users, especially maybe undergraduate students, and just point out that after they do an import, they should double check everything and just make sure that it matches the text, the full text that they imported. Just because sometimes when you're automatically importing, there can be mistakes in metadata from databases or in the DOI database, and it's always good to just double check. If you want to give yourself a task so you remember to do that, you can go into the Tasks tab here and then go down to the bottom and click the plus symbol. This is one design principle I want to point out, is that a lot of times things that you would do in Citavi 6 that were in the upper menu bar are now here down at the bottom, and should be a little bit easier to use, for example, with a touch device. Although Citavi Web is still a bit more designed for use on a laptop computer, something with enough screen space, although it does work, of course, on tablets as well. So we're going to add a task, and I'm going to add this verify bibliographic information task to my reference, and I might do that for all three. You can change the layout a bit, so you have these options on the side of the screen that let you hide columns. So we'll get into this these filter options here a little bit later, but I think next I want to show you the text section, because this is a bit different from Citavi 6. So in Citavi 6, there were 3 workspaces: references, knowledge, and tasks. And in Citavi Web, there's an additional one, text. And text is where you're going to work with your full text articles and make any comments on them, save ideas, and save notes, save quotations. Anything that you read that you think is interesting and that you want to keep for use in your paper, then you would do that here. And so that would look something like this. You open up the PDF in the middle, and again, you can make this as big as you want. And then you would just highlight what you think is useful. And so, for example, let's say I'm reading this section here. Oops. And then I think this is important. I can save that as a direct quotation, indirect quotation, summary, comment, or I can add keywords and abstract and table of contents. So the more common ones are here, and then these less common options are in that more menu. So I'm going to close that and add a direct quotation. And just like with Citavi 6 for Windows, you would reformulate the main idea in this core statement field. That just can help you jog your memory when you later are looking at a list of hundreds and hundreds of notes. So that's the restatement of the main idea. And then here I might want to add my quotation marks. In Citavi 6 for Windows, you could highlight and then right-click and add different kind of predefined quotation mark types. And in Citavi Web, a lot of those right-click options no longer are possible. Okay, so we've added that. Citavi was able to locate the page number for this article because it must have been in the metadata. And now I can add that to a category. One thing that trips me up every time, and you might have just seen it, is a lot of these different options here, they look like they're fields, but then you end up having to click on the heading here. So we'll do that. And we're going to add a category. Let's say we want this to be or by geography, something like that. And then we're going to want also maybe a subcategory. And yeah, now I have my categories set up, at least my initial ones. Of course, you can change this as you go, just like with Citavi for Windows. Let's jump back to our knowledge item we saved in the text area here. And that was this article, I believe. And there we go. And I'll just open that up. And then we can add one of our categories. And we'll add that to our China category there. Well, that's interesting. So yeah, and there are a couple little things here and there. So and I could add, for example, my own comment, and I might say something like, and you could continue on, and I won't keep typing here, but you could write out then your comment. And here, I'll just add in that page. And this is a good indication of why you should always check the information once you have a text in your project. So here in this particular article, the page number is actually 36 to 52, but it seems that it pulled in some different page numbers, and you could check that by going to that DOI address and just seeing if maybe it wasn't correct in the Crossref database. Yeah, so I have the page ranges correct now. Let's jump back to quotations. And then that should be set. So I have a couple knowledge items now. And if I go to the knowledge section, I can see what I have. So this one hasn't yet been categorized. And if I want to drag it, this works a little bit differently than in Citavi for Windows. You have these little dotted lines that appear, and you can hover over that and then pull it to the section that you want. So maybe I want this in just the general testing category there. They just updated something this morning, so I'm wondering if this is a new issue here, this little warning, but we'll just ignore that for now. So that's the task section. Let's jump back now before we go to the Word document and look at the Word Assistant. Let's jump back to references. And I want to show you how you can search in Citavi Web, because that's also a little bit different than Citavi for Windows. So you have your column here that has different filters. This is a lot like that filter symbol in the desktop version. And we tried to keep this to the main ones here, but you can always click more and then you have some additional options. But we didn't want it to be too overwhelming or too long a list on the small screen, so that's why you have that more button. Here then I can filter, for example, by references with PDFs, or I could filter, for example, by category. Let's say that I want to look for a reference that was saved here. And since we're in the reference section and I haven't categorized any references yet, that's why we're not seeing anything. Let's go ahead and add a reference to a category, and we'll add maybe these two here, just to that main testing category. Okay. And now, for example, if I had my long list of references and I wanted to look just for any reference I had that I had categorized as being under China by geography testing, then I can go to that and I'll find that one. Or if I'm looking for, if you have hundreds and hundreds of references, then it's a little harder to see than here with just these three. Let's say I'm looking for something on, I know that it was in the testing category, and then I want to add a condition. I want to look for maybe either the author or let's see, what could we try here? Maybe I know it was written last year. So you could use that filter and then you'll get to that article there. Or if you knew the author, for example, you could use a combination of filters to find that again. So one thing that we don't yet have in Citavi Web is the advanced search window that you have in Citavi 6 for Windows that lets you really search every single field and construct very detailed searches, use Boolean logic, and use asterisks and things like that to get at different spellings. So that's a little advanced for the web version. I think we will be expanding on the search features going forward, but at the moment you have the filter options, you have the full text search, so that would be up here. So let's say I want to look for my article that had information on yak jerky. So I type in yak, and then it's going to search across all the PDFs. And then it should pull up, I think if I jump to that article, it should pull up those instances. Yeah, and it's just a little bit slow at the moment, so now that's updating there. And then you can jump through the different sections to the different instances. Citavi 6 for Windows, I would say, is still very good for companies, for example, that need some of those more robust features, or somebody working maybe on a book project that's going over years and years, and they need some of the more advanced features in Citavi 6, or more specialized features, I guess I should say. And Citavi Web is more for people who want all the basics. They want the Citavi workflow, but they don't need maybe some of these more esoteric features. That's probably the wrong word, but some of those very specialized features that maybe 1% of users ever need. So this will be pretty familiar to anyone who's worked with Citavi 6. You would usually have your Citavi tab up here and click that to connect it up with your Word document. But with Citavi Web, there's the new Citavi Assistant. And the Citavi Assistant also works with Word for Mac. So if you're a Mac user working with Citavi Web, this is what you'll be using then to insert references. And to get that Citavi Assistant, it's pretty easy. You just go to Get Add-ins, so that's under the Insert menu, and then just look for Citavi, and then it should pop right up and you can install it. So you'll want to go with the Citavi Assistant and not the version that we had for the beta test, so just the normal assistant here. So let's go back, and I'm going to click on that. Okay, well, I'll show you what the beta version. I'm guessing something because I have the one installed, and yeah, it's funny, in the other demo, that wasn't an issue. Yeah, something different every time. So the features are the same as with the beta version, so we'll just go with that for now. So just like with Citavi for Windows, you can double click to insert a reference, and then Citavi will create the bibliography at the end. And of course, you also have your knowledge items that you've saved. I might be logged in to the beta version, actually. That's probably why. Okay, never mind. Anyway, that shouldn't happen to you when you're trying it out. All right, so we're just going to insert a quotation now as well. One thing that's a little bit that you might run into is how the knowledge items are inserted if you want to change that, because a lot of times the core statement will be inserted by default, and a lot of times you're going to want the knowledge item instead. So I'm going to change that quick. That's just in that settings menu there, and we'll choose that. And now if I insert that, it's going to insert the quotation and then the citation. And right now this is in the Citavi default style. I want to change that. Let's say we want to go with APA 6th edition, and we have a few different, sometimes it gets a little cut off, so you can just mouse over, and then you can see the name of the style. So we'll choose that one. You can also search by language, subject area, citation system. Okay. So now I just have to click this button up here, Save Changes in Format, and it's going to update all of those references and then my reference list at the end. And it'll even get some of those very strange rules, like in APA 6, you have this these 3 dots here because it's a large number of authors, so that is indeed correct there. If you ever need to make changes to a reference, for example here, if I decided I wanted to add the page number, I can do that, and then just hit the check mark here, and you have the different options with year only, person only, no parentheses. And you also have your different formatting option if you want a footnote, for example. So you have some of those more advanced options here as well, but we'll just do a page number for now, and then it updates that. This is just kind of a summary of some of those main differences that we looked at today. So things like you notice throughout I was pointing out some areas where we're missing some features. This list here is good to refer to because it'll show you what some of those differences are. And for the full list, you can go to this link at the bottom. Yeah, thanks again, everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.